Well, welcome everybody to our online program on addiction and recovery from the Sunshine Coast Health Center up here in Powell River, BC. And our topic this time is on addiction in the media. And what seems noticeable is that there are far too many people today talking about addiction. It's every time I look at the internet, read a newspaper, watch a newscast, it seems like we have more and more people focused on addiction. And a lot of this is coming from, at least in British Columbia, from this thing that the media have called the opioid crisis. And so I've heard police officers talk about it, government officials, the public, families of people who are addicted, people who are addicted talking about it. And just it's a bit disconcerting because with all this talking, we don't really seem to be getting at really the root of what's going on. We're not getting a good picture of what's going on. And that's because most of the people doing the talking are not really well versed in this very complicated interaction of biological, psychological, and social factors that somehow weave together to create addiction. And similarly with treatment, I hear people in the media talk constantly about, oh, well, we need more treatment. And the assumption that they are operating on is that somehow if we could just get all these people using drugs into treatment, somehow this would magically solve the problem. Right? And yet, in the big picture field of addiction, we actually have very good studies on how well treatment works. And one of the things that's most noticeable from those studies is that we're still struggling to figure out how to help people who suffer from this thing we call addiction. Anyway, on this online program, I thought we'd look at a couple of these ideas that keep popping up in the media and just have a look at them to see how helpful they really are. And one of the more curious ones is that the media really like, or journalists, I guess I should say, really like interviewing medical doctors, particularly those certified in addiction medicine. And these stand in as the clinical experts in the field. And there's no problem with that. Yeah, it's a very good perspective to understand. But in the big picture of addiction, in the field of addiction, there are many different theories, many different perspectives. Medical doctors tend to be trained in what is known as the biomedical model, which is sort of popularly called the disease model, which is one of those many scientific theories of addiction. But it's only one. But when all you read about or hear about in the media is from the medical doctors, it sort of tends to make people believe that, well, these must be the experts in the field. But there are a lot of experts in the field that actually have a very different idea about what an addiction is and how it should be treated. But we don't hear about that. All these different ideas. We seem to be given sort of one idea and that's it, and this must be what addiction is, and there's really no reason for further debate. Anyway, it's a curious thing, though, that we're just wondering whether the information we're getting from the media really is all that valid, because it's not big picture view. It doesn't take a broad view of the whole field of addiction and treatment. Anyway, that's this episode, and we'll be back next time with another episode.